Dude, it's cool, man. My schedule is insane as well, and things happen. It's all good. My kids have been up since 11 o'clock last night. I'm on no sleep, but we're here, we're rolling, we're
Oh,
doing it.
oh
We're
my
doing the
gosh, dude.
thing.
Oh my gosh, dude. It's weird. Dude, I like got on this thing in September where I just really got tired of my weight and stuff just being way out of control. So dude, I've lost 100 pounds and
Dude,
in like 6 months, and it's actually been really easy and good. And that's the great thing. I'm feeling better than ever. The bad thing is, I don't know if it's a hormone imbalance or something like that, but it affected my sleep, dude, for like months. I was staying up till like 4 o'clock in the morning, like wide awake,
oh wow.
and getting like 3 hours of sleep for like weeks. But here we are. So I empathize and understand your pain today. So,
I actually, my wife and I just joined, we just joined a gym 2 days ago, so I've started eating healthier, and I'm just not happy with my weight.
yeah,
Same thing, and it's time to make a change, man. So, dude, I feel you.
yeah,
And by the way, like I've been a fan of yours since I was a kid. Your body transformation, your weight loss has
yeah.
been inspiring, dude. Congratulations
Thank you, dude.
on.
I've actually really hoped that would be the case because other people have inspired me. But dude, I've had two times in my life where I've done this, and I realize I know what to do and I know it works. But man, dude, I've spent like what, gosh, 20 years just way out of control. I'd have little seasons of getting things together, but I found something that really works for me, and intermittent fasting works for me, and
Right.
and I just realized I don't need to eat all the time like I was. You know what I mean? Anyway, but dude, I'm stoked for you, and the best advice I could give you is just to stick with it, man, because that
Hmm.
time's going to come here very soon where you're going to think, man, I just want to go, go to the pizza buffet and eat it all. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
you just got to get
Yes.
through those times, man. And if you do fail, you get back up the next day, man.
Yeah, for sure. And
And
having 3-year-old twins, man, makes it tough.
oh my gosh, holy cow! So that's 90% of the reason you don't sleep.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes. Exactly. And a 13-year-old daughter. I've got a teenager and two 3-year-olds.
Oh
So,
man,
yeah, sleep isn't a thing anymore, man. It's
I
not.
got you. I got you.
Dude, I know I just mentioned it, man, but I grew up a Guardian fan. My dad got me into classic Christian rock at a
Uh huh.
very young age. You, Guardian, Striper, Bride, all of you guys.
Yeah.
So to see you doing something like Calamity Kills and getting a lot of mainstream love is
Mhm.
really cool for me to see, man. Calamity Kills, this is a fairly new band for you over the last few years, I
Yeah.
think, right?
Yeah. It's definitely new, and thank you for saying that. And that's what's kind of been cool. I'm very actually extremely proud of my time and contributions in Guardian, and more so than ever, I'm aware of how much that band meant to people, and
Hmm.
and I'm really grateful for all that. But with Calamity Kills, originally Kills started off as just my solo project,
Right.
and when I recorded the first song, because I was going to do a Kickstarter campaign, and I wanted people to hear what the music was going to sound like. I didn't want them to be surprised, because I'd just come off of making This Is Home, which was a country influenced rock record, and I
Hmm.
wanted people to know like that's really not the direction I'm going with this. So I recorded a song, and it was called Sinner's Welcome, and I realized when I listened to it, it didn't sound like a solo artist. It sounded like a band, and so I started to think, well, maybe I should do something like a Trent Reznor thing where he has, it's Trent Reznor, but it's also Nine Inch Nails. It's a band identity.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I did that, and people always ask me what the meaning of the name is, and I wish I had this cool story, but the fact is, I thought the name, the two words sounded good together. I just
They
thought it
do.
sounded cool. Calamity Kills. You know what I mean? But now I realize, and I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they said it's kind of a warning. I said, yeah, because nobody wants calamity in their life. It's calamity kills. So they said it's kind of a warning. I thought, well, that's kind of nice, but that was never my intention. So
Right.
it just made up. But anyway, so I made the record. It got funded, and midway through, it's still, actually the whole record is being made as my solo project, but it's called Calamity Kills. And then while we're doing the record, I realized Jamie Rowe, who I'm working with, is really like stepping up, not just as a producer, but he's contributing like ideas and whatnot. And by the time we got to the mix stage, I said, dude, this feels like this is our project now instead of just mine. I said, let's just make this a 50-50 deal. And he agreed. So we released the record. It's been a 50-50 partnership between me and Perino. And then now we actually have two other members and stuff for the live band and everything. But it's literally morphed into a legitimate band.
Yeah, it's really cool, and I love how all of your projects that you've done sound very different from each other. Guardian is different from Adrian Gale, which is different from Kalamity.
Yeah, and London
This
Calling,
yes.
So
Yeah. This. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, man, and that's just due to the fact that I'm a music fan and not necessarily a genre fan. I like whatever I like, and Cheap Trick is probably my biggest lifetime influence musically, and like I got to explore that with the London Calling years and everything. But I also, I love bands like Rob Zombie. I love Rammstein, however you want to say it, depends on who you're with. And things like that. And I still, and even in modern bands like Falling in Reverse and Wage War, I like all that stuff. So it's just like I'm constantly being turned on to new music. Let's put it this way: before this interview, I was listening to Sufjan Stevens. I was listening to Chicago record. So I love music, and I allow myself to be influenced by all that.
Yeah, at my regular job, I help manage an apartment complex, and one of my best friends works with me in the office, and we'll always joke with people because everyone, obviously rock and metal is my main genre I'm into, but someone from our corporate office came in the other day, and she's like, "Are you listening to Backstreet Boys?" I'm like, I absolutely am. Yes.
Dude, great songs, man.
Good music is good music, man.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter the genre,
I agree.
And the stuff with Calamity is man, especially with Starry Skies.
Yeah.
This one is all of your music is obviously personal to you, but this seems a lot more personal and a lot more emotion driven, especially with Starry Skies.
Yeah, and it's cool. And like I said, I'm in a place in my life where I do music. I don't really make a lot of money, if any, from music these days. So that's kind of sad in one aspect because, if you're a new artist, it's really hard to make a living in the streaming era. The streaming era is great for the listener. It's terrible. It's terrible for the artist. But the plus side of that is you don't think about, the commerce side of things. So it frees you up to really just write what you want, write what you feel. And that's without taking the other factors into consideration. And just to touch on Starry Skies, well, first of all, let me back up on one thing. If you know anything about my history, which you do, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I don't hide that. I've never made that a thing. But I did get to a point where I realized, like, if God gave me this gift of music, I don't want to just sing to people who agree with me or who think like me.
Yeah.
It's like I want to. God gave me a voice. I don't want to put it in a box and hide it from people. I want to be able to sing to the person I meet, at the grocery store that's wearing a Deftones shirt. My music should be for everybody. And so that's the focus with Kills. Kills is not a Christian band. I don't want that label attached to us in any way, shape, or form. Am I a Christian? Yes. Are other people in the band Christian? Yes. Are some not? Yes. We're just people, and I'm a creative artist that wants to express my heart. With the case of a song like Starry Skies, I have never hid the fact that I've dealt with depression most of my life. And so I know what it's like to be at the end of your rope and just want to, you're sitting there. I always use this analogy because it actually happened once. I was sitting waiting for a train to pass, and I was going through one of my depressive phases, and I actually literally looked at the train and thought, I could just get out of this car and walk in front of that train, and life would be over, and these troubles I have would be gone. And thank God I never got to that point, because I would have missed out on the best years and days and moments of my life. But I say that just to let people know I understand. This is not just me being an observer. I went through it. But in the case of Starry Skies specifically, and I believe it was someone from your area in the Indianapolis area. I saw on TikTok like a 12-year-old girl had been bullied at school, and she committed suicide. And it's like, you ever hear those stories where you read a story, you don't know any of these people, but all of a sudden you feel this connection, like, and you almost mourn, like if they were in your immediate family or immediate circle. And I just hated the fact that this 12-year-old girl thought her life was hopeless and decided to end it. And so when I started writing Starry Skies, I just decided to write kind of with that story in mind, and just letting people know, if you listen to the flow of the song, the first half of the song seems pretty negative because it addresses all the feelings you're having. And, where's my starry skies? And the starry skies is my analogy for, like, a perfect life. But at the end of the song, it resolves because it points people towards the 988 lifeline, which a lot of people don't realize even exists. And there are people out there who will listen to you, who know what you're going through, and are actually trained to help you walk through those things. And I wanted to draw attention to that. So I wanted to let people know that life is worth living, you matter, and that there's always hope. And like I said, if I would have been successful in a suicide attempt or something like that, I would have missed out on the best days of my life. I wouldn't be talking to you about this song that's on the Billboard chart right now. Little things like that. I wouldn't be married to Amber, who's just the love of my life and rocks my world. So that's a long-winded way to tell you that song is personal to me. Are you there? Hello? I'm not hearing anything, Reggie.
Hello?
Yes, now
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, man.
Were you able to hear any of that? Because it's like I lost you. So
I heard all of it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I feel like when you become a parent and you hear stories about that suicide,
Yeah.
or when you hear about all of these school shootings, when it hits different when you have kids and when you become a parent.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about a failed shooting attempt up here in Noblesville, Indiana, where a teacher actually stopped it. But just like knowing that, like, I have a daughter who is
Mm-hmm.
in school, and that can happen now. Like, to
Yep.
like that stuff totally hits different once you become a parent and have children.
Yeah.
Totally, like, understand the what you say about, like, you just sympathizing, just mourning
Yeah.
those, because it just the I don't understand why, because I've dealt with depression since probably childhood, definitely high
Mm-hmm.
school, and I've never understood why it's such an important topic, and it's so much on the forefront now, but there's still the stigma that you
Yeah.
don't want to talk about it at the same,
No.
like, everybody encourages it, but people
Yeah.
are still afraid to talk about it. And I am more than open with my depression struggles.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through counseling and therapy dozens of times, and it's okay to not be okay. And
Yes,
that's why I
it
love this
truly
song.
is, especially when you realize that that's the case with most people. I don't think I've met anybody in this life that has it all together.
Yeah.
But that's what's cool about the 988 Lifeline, because when you talk to, it's in the lyric in the song, a stranger on the phone convincing me I'm not alone. There are people who don't want to talk to their friends and family because they feel a sense of shame,
Yeah.
but they'll talk to a stranger. So the fact that that is in the song title, and so when most people see that song and the 988 number is in there, that's an added bonus for me, and that's 100% intentional that people find out about that.
Another thing you mentioned that I absolutely love, and I follow you on social media, and we've talked on
Okay.
there a few times as
Yeah,
well.
dude, I fully know who you are, brother. So yeah. So
One thing I love, man, is when you say Calamity Kills is not a Christian band. I don't
yeah.
want to play to only to people who completely agree with me. It takes me
Exactly.
back to a conversation with John Cooper probably 10 years ago, where I asked him, because I absolutely love the Worship album that Skillet did like
Yeah.
20 years ago, and I was like, is there any plans to do something like that again? And his answer really resonated with me. And he said, "We absolutely, I loved making that record. It was a lot of fun, but the people that that record was for have already heard what we're talking about. They've already
Yeah,
heard the message. They don't need to hear it over and over again. They already know."
yeah,
He's like, I would much rather play, 50-50 part to Christian audiences, but really focus on evangelizing because that's what we're here for. We
hmm
need to take our, and just like you, he's very open about his faith and what he believes. Doesn't push it down your throat, but
hmm
and he'll talk to you if you want to hear about it. And I just love when Christian artists who are Christians go into the mainstream, get the attention, the message is there.
yeah,
Because a whole population is hearing something that they would never, ever, ever hear anywhere
yeah.
else.
It's like it's another side of the story. It's another part of the life experience, that people have. It's funny how many. I mean, people always just think of, especially if you look at the scene. I mean, there's a lot of satanic imagery and whatnot in hard rock and metal,
Hmm.
and but you realize there's a lot of people who love hard rock and metal that are believers in Christ. And
Yeah.
there are people who grew up in church, and maybe, like their favorite band is Papa Roach, but they also like Skillet, you know what I mean? So it's like there's common ground. It's just, if people are truly making art and expressing themselves, if they have a Christian faith, it's the best way I always put it is it's the accent I'm going to speak with no matter what, because that's my native tongue. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
and that just comes through. But that doesn't mean that, there's something great about just sitting and writing like just a rock song that just feels good. It doesn't have to change the world. It doesn't have to have a message. It's just a good rock song, and there's space for that. And a lot of times in Christian music, they don't allow that. Like
Yeah.
it needs to, what's the point of this song? This, they start producing product rather than art. This,
Hmm.
this is an agenda. Well, no, it's not, man. It's just I had this cool riff, and I was thinking about, hanging out with my friends, so I wrote a song about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I could go on all day about that.
Well, that's one thing I've talked to a lot of artists about is when they break into like somebody like a Jelly Roll or a Tim
Hmm.
Montana or a Royal Lynn who were
Yeah,
in one genre and didn't really get the love or the welcoming that they wanted, and then they broke into rock,
yeah.
and holy crap, like
Dude,
it's the most welcoming community like in all the music, it seems
it,
like.
well, it really is, because it's funny. Tim Montana, who is an artist I really enjoy, and I like
Yeah.
How you pronounce it, Roy Ellen. I
Right.
like them both, and I discovered them through rock channels. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Through Octane or through YouTube suggestions. But dude, Tim Montana is great, and I feel kind of a connection there, because the guy who produced his record, the new record, played on some solo stuff of mine for the Extreme Days soundtrack in like 2001. You know what I
Oh,
mean? So,
wow.
and now he's producing Tim Montana, and
That takes
I,
me
I
back.
I think that's great. But you're right. The rock community is definitely. I mean, I can turn on Octane on Sirius XM. I can hear Montana. I can hear Jelly Roll, and I can also hear, like I said, Papa Roach and Nonpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
that.
And speaking of Octane, like one of my favorite moments I've had, because I listen to the only things I listen to on XM is Fight Nation for Busted
Uh-huh.
Open, then Octane, and then Hair Nation, and that is
Yeah,
it,
of course.
nothing else.
I
Um,
No, Octane and Hair Nation are presets like right next to each other on my car
yes,
radio.
yes. I just remember listening to Octane, and I just remember hearing Calamity Kills come on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
or I wasn't paying attention. I heard your voice. I'm like, is
Uh-huh.
that Jamie Rowe on Octane? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on? And then I looked. I'm like, yes. Um, and Starry Skies is charting really well. It's doing really well.
Yes, it is.
When you have music as personal as Starry Skies or I Still Believe, and it
Hmm.
does as well as it does, but that's gotta make it. That's gotta mean a lot. It's gotta mean. I feel like that would mean more than other singles
Oh,
charting.
it does. Like I said, I saw a chart. I thought we were 35 this week on Billboard because that's the data I saw, and
Yeah.
I just got the actual chart like from our radio promoter. He sent the actual Billboard chart, and we're at 34. And
Nice.
I tell you what, dude, I've had as a writer, I've had 13 number one songs at Christian radio,
Mm-hmm.
12 with Guardian, no, 10 with Guardian, one with a band called the Frantics, which ended up being half my London Calling band, and then one with Toby Mac with Extreme Days. And I'm telling you, being 34 in the mainstream world means a lot more to me than having 13 number one songs. It really does, because especially the content, and I know that people are hearing them, and it's not preaching to the choir. It's not, it's reaching. I call it Main Street America. It's reaching everybody. Everybody's getting a chance to hear it, and I think that's just absolutely wonderful. Absolutely
I,
wonderful.
I also feel like Christian or not rock radio in the 2020s and 2025,
Hmm.
I've noticed is a lot more open-minded and welcoming to Christians and Christian rock bands in general than they
Absolutely.
were 35 years ago when
Absolutely. Yeah.
you
Not
guys
to
were
cut you
going
off, but
strong.
I gotta cut you off, dude. Like for a band like Guardian, I mean, we always were able to have like little things like our pass through deal with Sony. We were able to get on Headbangers Ball, and like Concrete Marketing did some radio promo for us. So we had a
Mhm.
little bit of presence in the mainstream, but there was a lot of resistance to it, a lot.
Yeah.
And what's funny is now, if you've heard us on Octane, like Starry Skies actually premiered on Test Drive on Octane. It was a world premiere, and the timing of it was awesome because I didn't realize they had world premiered the first Linkin Park song, in years, like
Yeah.
right before our song. So a lot of
Oh, it's
people were
perfect.
listening. A lot of people were listening, and Jose Mangan, the host, I mean, he gets on there and says, Jamie Rowe, formerly of the Christian rock band Guardian for many
I
years, you know what I
remember
mean? So,
that.
and that was really cool, because, like I said, in 20 years ago, that would have been a negative. But I
Yeah.
think something happened in the 2000s in the Warped Tour era.
Yeah.
You had Family Force 5 on those tours. There were a lot of tooth and nail bands. I
Hmm.
think people just got to the point, and there was a guy who was a podcaster named Finn McKenty, and he did a lot of stuff. He's like, man, I'm not a Christian, but I listen to a lot of Christian hardcore music and whatnot. I just
Hmm.
think that the music connected with people, and I think the stigma of it is they know it's going to a rock concert of a Christian band in 2025 doesn't necessarily mean you're attending a church service and, oh yeah, they're playing music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's been cool, but like I said, been Octane and radio stations all over the place. Music Choice, you know what I mean? Things like that that's
Hmm.
on your cable TV. We're in the mix, and that's important to me, man. We're participants in the culture at large, and as an artist, that's just a great feeling.
It is so good to see all of this happening for you, man.
Yeah.
It is just absolutely amazing to see just the love that you're getting with Calamity Kills, man. What's the rest of the year look like for the band? I
Well,
mean,
actually,
Starry Skies is going strong.
no, I can tell you that we're going to keep working Starry Skies. I said, even like last week, like 3 new stations picked us up. So people are still. It's been a slow burn, man. We've been working this single for this is going to be our 7th month, since it debuted on Octane, and it's still going and it's still growing. And I actually did an interview yesterday with a radio station in State College, Pennsylvania, and we're
Nice.
tied. We are tied with 2 other artists for the number one spot on their station. And
Nice.
the guy even said, he goes, it's been a slow burn. It's been really cool to see you guys. And before the interview was over, he just said offline, he said, hey, I just want you to know we're in with Calamity Kills for the long haul.
Oh,
And I
that's
was like, wow. So he goes, so whatever you got coming up, he goes, just know you can count on us. And
that's amazing.
that was huge. And what's funny is too, Reggie, what's awesome, and I think this is ultimately a God thing, but I'm not a new artist, but in this realm I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got all this experience and everything, and so when I'm talking to radio and I'm talking to media, I speak the language already. I kind of know, and it's like they're kind of like, where did you guys come from? You know what I mean? They see our record, they see that Ray from Korn played on tracks,
Yeah.
Karen from Under Oath, and even Ace Von Johnson, things like that. Like, what's the story here? And it's been really cool and a blessing. And I'm really thankful for the Guardian years because it prepared me for what I'm doing right now. And like I said, Reggie, if Calamity Kills stopped right now, like I would consider it 100% a successful part of my life. You know what I mean? And thank God it's not going to stop. But the next steps are we actually have a new song that's actually the mix is almost complete. We've been working on it, and I'll go ahead and tell you it's called Afraid, and it's got a subtitle of We Don't Bow. It's like we don't bow to the throne of enemies, and it's really cool. And Ray Luzier played drums on it again.
Yes.
And it's really awesome. It's a step forward, and that'll be the next song we release after Starry Skies runs its course. But we've also, we've added Julia Lauren Bullock from the Foxies into our live band, and we actually had her track vocals on a new version of Dark Secrets from the Kills debut, and we may end up releasing that too. So it's really cool. There's some cool stuff happening with the band, and like I said, adding Julie and Rob to the mix has been wonderful. And Julia's got a great voice, and she's the female vocal on Hellfire Honey on the Kills debut, but she actually sang some featured lines with me on Afraid, and it sounds really good. She and I together, and it's something fresh for the Kills sound, and that's gonna be here before you know it.
Oh, you mentioned live band, man. I gotta ask.
Yeah, you better believe it. It's gonna happen.
Oh man, you're not far. You're in Nashville, or
I'm in Nashville. Yeah,
you're not far. So even if you don't come to Indiana, I will go to Nashville. Don't tempt me.
Perino and I talk about this all the time. Is that it would be smart, and we've strategically have done things like a little bit different than most bands. We've concentrated on building our audience through releasing the music and through radio and whatnot, whereas a lot of people go out and hit the road and try to do all that stuff. Well, in this economy and everything like that, it kind of doesn't make sense so much. So we've actually kind of got to a point now where I think we've established our name enough that people have recognition and stuff. Now it's time to really start thinking about the live shows. And, I swing for the fences, man. I've already, Alice in Chains is playing here in Nashville, and I know their manager. And stuff. So sure enough, I asked if we could be on the bill, and he said,
have to ask.
And, yeah, I did. I said, hey, can we be on the bill? And he said, well, right now it's a two band show, but if that changes, I'll let you know. And so it's like, it's like it would be great. Wouldn't it be wild if the full official, because we played in acoustic sets and stuff already, but the full band show would be opening for Alice in Chains in Nashville. That would be insane. But it never hurts to ask. But we want to go for those big opportunities, and it would be great. I don't foresee us getting in a van and traveling to Grimes, Iowa, to play for 100 people.
Right.
But I do foresee us very strategically, regionally, and Indianapolis would be in that region. Louisville, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Huntsville, Alabama. It makes sense to target that to start, and if we can attach ourselves with some. Land some really good opening slots, that would be a perfect world. Actually, it's funny, I haven't talked to John Cooper in a long time, but I would love to connect with him and see if Kills could do something with Skillet. That would just be wonderful.
Oh, he's a classic Christian rock junkie, so he would jump at that probably. But I feel like he would want to hear some Guardians.
Yeah, he probably would. He's an old school Guardian fan, and he's always been really cool to me. Everything, but we haven't talked in a while. But I don't even know if he knows I'm in Calamity Kills. I don't even know. So
I'll have to mention that to him next time I interview him. I'll just get an interview with him just to tell him. So
yeah, please do.